our ultimate 2025 Springbok team, every Sunday with André Pretorius.
Welcome again to the Lekker Rugby Pod. André Pretorius and I are going to be going through another position, a set of positions really, because some of the positions in rugby are tandem couples. André, how are you doing? And did you ever kick in a shootout kickoff contest when you were going for poles?
Hi, Harry. Nice to see you again. Good to be on here. Harry, I didn't, but last night I went through the same emotions. Being a kicker, obviously myself, I could just think and put myself into that position. And you know what it kind of reminded me of? It reminded me of, and it's something that I used to do quite often, is when the forwards were doing line-out unit sessions after training, I would always try and kick very close to them. And because if you miss, those boys give you a lot of crap. They want to see you miss. They talk to you beforehand. They tell you what you're going to do. And, we had a guy like Derek Minnie who was kicking with his toe. And he nearly beat me in a kickoff one day. So I used to go there and they would stand in a line next to, obviously the guy's not part of and they'd have a look at the kicking. But I did it on purpose. It really helped me focus on just going through that. And I was given a lot of crap by them. But it kind of brought flashes back from those training days and the forwards, wanting you to miss that kick, and that pressure is immense.
Yeah, and locks, who we're about to talk about today, they face the same pressure at line-out time, of course, because it's 79 minutes. There's a call. I mean, this happened. All Blacks losing in Cape Town. The All Blacks had to put a ball into a line-out, and they had one lost gasp, and then it was Eben lifting Peter Steph Toy, a steal, and Norche kicks it out. So there's moments where there's almost clinical laboratory conditions you have to execute. And so locks, we're going to talk about today, are part of that little system in the lineouts. We struggle a bit sometimes in this series because, we're not just picking in a vacuum. We have to pick sort of a couple. In the midfield, you have two centers, although 12 and 13 have become very different from each other. They become much more specialized. And the swing midfielder is more uncommon. The kind your arm can do it, but not everyone can do it. At the wings, you'd be surprised how left wings and right wings don't really love crossing the pitch, even though Chess and Colby, Curtly Aronsek can definitely do it because they're lekkerbacks. And then by now we know the props, the left hand, the loose head, and the right hand tight head props. Very few swing props like Tank the Toy left anymore. In the day, you could do it more easily. So today we're going to talk about locks, and we're going to start out actually with the number 4. It's a bit arbitrary, right? Because you put a number 4 lock, but you can stand wherever you want to the line out. In the scrum, you can switch depending on how you want to pack your scrum. Don Human likes a no space in between scrum. Or if a drone looked down or a spider cam looked down, you would see nothing. So if you have Ox Inche out there with Trevor and Bongi, that's a short front row. You want to make sure that your locks don't imbalance it. Other thing we all know about locks is they're tall. Okay, so now we're getting into the position where you actually have to have dimensions that are uncommon in the world. There's a lot of 6'1" guys, 1.85, 100 kgs, who got serious aggro running around, and we can figure out if they're a hooker or a flank. Just millions and millions and millions.
The 5.5s.
Yeah, there's not a lot of 2 meter tall guys who can run a 10K, have good hands, are belligerent, and have the shoulders that can handle a locks play. So we're looking at very rare guys. We also have 2 of them, and if we have on a bench, we have 2. It's a big percentage of the team, and so basically, if your locks are really good, you've got a huge advantage on the other team. Luckily, we've had one of the greatest locks running around for a long time in South Africa, Eben Etzebeth, who literally almost erased the difference between the Bucky's type and the Victor type. So we're going to dive in, but just beware. Once again, we're dealing with a unicorn that does a lot of different things. We tried to take the categories and sort of outline them in a 40%, 30%, 20%, 10%. We've done this through all the positions. Please go back and look at some of these. They're really cool how we've looked at wings and fly-offs and scrum-offs and try to isolate that. But for the lock, who we'll call the 4, We want set piece to occupy 40%. What does that mean? Line out, scrums, restarts, basically the maul killing. All that we'll put into a set piece and say, you've got to be a technician. You've got to do that job. And it's technical, but also it's effort. The next category is going to be carrying, your ability to carry over the gain line repetitively, 30% of that. Stopping, tackling, and carrying, the gain line percentage. 20% at ruck, and this means that you are going to clean rucks. If you are a lock, if you are the enforcer lock, if you're the number 4 on the back, if you cannot clean a ruck by yourself, if you need help, you're in trouble. You're already not really a Springbok number 4. And then finally, power, and by this I mean you've got to be pretty much the most powerful guy on the pitch. If you're number 4 and you walk in there and you say, what are you playing today? I'm Springbok number 4. You've got to be the guy who can move things, stop things. As they said back in the day, people that play the piano, people that move the piano. You are a piano shifter. So, André, without further ado, let's climb in to looking at the sort of definition of an enforcer, number 4 lock. Your friend and my friend, Eben Etzebeth. You have to be friends with him because it's too scary not to be.
Eric, just before we get into that again, you mentioned the unicorn. And if you think about days gone by, the 4 lock wasn't the most flashy. He was he's always been your enforcer. But Eben has taken this role and he's put a lot of extra dimensions onto it. And when you look at these players, you kind of take for granted certain things. Like, I didn't include any line-out work from Eben because he's world-class with that. I didn't include any tackle work from Eben, although all the players I coach, there's one thing that Eben does really well, is even though he gets into a terrible tackling position, once he gets hold of you, he starts pulling you back to where you came from.
Mm.
So it doesn't mean that he has to get shoulders on or he gets a hit and stick or a wrap. It doesn't matter. As long as he gets hold of you and then he starts working you back, because that tackle fight obviously slows the ball down. It makes the attacking breakdown so much harder. And then it gives your defense time to set. And I coach that shamelessly as one of our principles, where I don't want players to think that you can only tackle when you're in a great position. But if you get hold of someone, just start working back to where they came from, because you'll get reinforcement and you'll slow down the ruck. So let's have a look at Eben, and I'll explain how we go about this and what I want the viewers to see from this. Gary, I think the first thing we can say is that Eben is a great ball carrier. Always working with his legs, ensuring that he gets over the advantage line. And this is no different. Gets the ball in motion, probably a bit deep. I think the ball was a bit too quick on that occasion for him. But ball in the right side, taking on a double hit onto the 9 and gets over the advantage line. So again, you kind of want to take for granted that he is a good ball carrier, but I just want to show the viewers why he's a good ball carrier. Same thing with this. Probably a bit static, gets onto a weak shoulder, ball available immediately. And what I mean by static is, and when we get to some of the other candidates tonight, you'll see what I mean, is that you want him in motion there. And what makes this carry so good is the fact that he gets it static. Small movement, it's very, very slight. It's actually just to miss this defender's head. Small movement, gets onto the shoulder. Now, Eben is 120. If you don't get everything in front of him, that's going to be the result. You're going to slip off that. And he knows that. Slight movement adjustment onto the left shoulder and keeps pumping the legs. Next one, probably his most dangerous, is when he gets into this wide channel. And again, that leg drive gets the penalty on that one.
Yeah, he's also very comfortable out there. He played center up until I think grade 9 in schools. And so he's when you put him in space, he's not panicking. He's not putting his head down with blinkers on. He is looking around, but also he's a 120. But his 120 is a very athletic 120.
I like the fact that you brought that up, Harry, because he's not a one-trick pony. He can play with the ball. One of the examples here is a little tip ball to RG Snyman. Now, my colleague that I coach with is an Irishman that stayed in Australia, so he battles with the RG Snyman. It's RG Snyman for them. Little tip ball to RG into the space. And he was on his way to that ruck, but he made a good decision there to stay out. What I would like to see here, though, Harry, just as a matter of interest, is if you have Marnie, who's quite static at this time, if you have him run just a disconnect ball from there, this defender has got to make some decisions. And because there's nothing there, he can commit onto Snyman. But if Marnie was running that ball and the ball goes out the back, you're probably sitting with a 3-on-1, maybe 4-on-1 out the back. So that's why it's so important. And I know this is not part of the fours, but we like to get technical on this one. That's why it's so important for you to have technical pivots that's very active behind the pods. And the Irish do that very, very well. We'll see that later on.
Yeah, it's true. In that position, Tyburn, same position, you would expect him to do a pullback out the back pass to Crowley or Prendergast because he would know he would be there. He wouldn't even really have to think about it. Eben's been leading the pods on attack for years now. And then so by ruck 3 or ruck 4, often it would be Eben getting the ball exactly in that situation.
So another thing that we spoke about is that Eben doesn't have blinkers on, and this is probably a time where that he should have had it, but it just shows you his awareness, and he kind of thinks that the space is on the outside into that 5 meters. If he cuts back there, probably 8 times out of 10 he scores this.
Yeah, but it's the French quarterfinal try. It's the same setup as when he took 3 players over. Yeah,
that's right, but he doesn't. Gets the ball out, and the backs made an absolute hash of it. But the fact that he goes and still makes that pass, it makes him difficult to defend, Harry, because he's a guy that can run over you. He can make a pass. If he can make a pass, he can probably show it and go as well. So it makes him difficult to defend. And then this is an interesting one. So everybody's been playing these little out the back balls, commit onto your pods and get the ball into that pivot at the back. But what's good on this one is that Eben sees that there's a defense line that's set here, which means that in this part of the field, there's going to be great line speed. I want you to see how he holds his feet. He doesn't take the space, holds his feet in there. And when he makes that pass, he's committed. All of these players in front of him gets the ball out.
Yeah.
And they can play into the wide channels.
That's brilliant.
Because if he had taken, and again, we spoke about motion earlier, but the awareness not to get into motion here, because of this set defense line in front of him, he knew there was line speed coming. So he treading water, make them come to you, and look at that cluster that he's just committed, which makes them sluggish midfield, 2 long passes, and we're into space. So the 4 lock is not just a lock that's hitting rucks and carrying sometimes. Eben's taken this to the next level. Right, and then not just on the attack, obviously on defense, you got one of the best wingers in the world. I see the Bulls call them a Sticky van der Merwe. Inside ball, probably one of the most difficult tackles to make. You're watching your outside, have to adjust to the inside. He gets hold of him with one of those vice grips, probably just 2 fingers that, pulls him back in, and then makes the tackle.
Whew.
Now, I'll be honest, I don't see a lot of locks in World Rugby make that tackle from the outside. I'm not talking from inside catch up. I'm talking from outside adjust. Not a lot of locks in the world make this tackle on Duan. And it's a critical time in the game. We're leading 19-12. They score there, probably all square. Scots get their tails up. Difficult game from there. So it's important part of the game.
Yeah, I was thinking about who would make that, and the only name that came to my mind was actually Courtney Laws, sort of a lock flank, in that he had the ability to grab something and then reel it in. What's interesting also is I think Eben he has time and space. When he's playing, it feels like he's thinking along. So even though the guy beat him through there, he already knew what he was going to do. He had a plan.
Very true. And I think the versatility of roles that you get taught about functional roles in rugby. The versatility of the roles that he can play. He doesn't just jump into that 4 jersey and play 4 lock rugby. He's a very, very smart rugby player. And now we get to the work rate part. So there's a line break here. Ball gets put out the back. Willie decides to carry. Now you'll see Reinach needs to work back. They've got 2 defenders right on top of Willie. And then you see, well, not all heroes wear capes. You get Eben out of nowhere. And look at the way that he hits this ruck with. You know, it's shoulder on. He gets in front, and it gives us an opportunity to keep that ball. I think any other situation, we probably lose that if he's not there. A big part of Eben's value lies in his work rate and his pressure, the pressure that he puts the opponents under. And one of these, he chases kicks like wings, and I'll show you why I say that. So, box kick from there, he gets there before Colby does. And not just that, Harry, we'll go through this in slow-mo, but he contests like a wing, wins the ball back.
Yeah.
And they move it, and it's another counter-attack opportunity. Now, I want to show you just on the slow-mo how he jumps in front, and look at that right arm. That right arm right in front of the opponent's face, getting into that space, and that's how he wins it. And that's your lock. That's not even your wing. He gets there before the wing. Obviously, the ball's more inside, and that's why he's getting there. But he still needs to sprint there. He still needs to make an effort to get there, and he wins it. And like I said, that's one of his biggest contributors in the game, is his work rate and the pressure that exerts onto the opponents. Good timing, and immediately he's over the ball with Sia trying to contest that.
It's one of the biggest developments in Bok rugby over the last few years was to form attack chase pods, not just with the ball in hand, but on chase, and literally having one of each type. So you have the challenger, Peter Steff or Eben. You have the good ruckman. You have Sia, or you have another Lucy, Kwacha, and then you have lackerbacks that are looking for the scraps. And you have one that goes beyond and one that stays short, because once the ball drops to the floor, general play can be where you're all onside. Eben, the ability to trust a guy like Eben, I mean, not many teams could trust their number 4 lock to be part of a chase team. They're going to have cards. They're going to knock someone out. They're going to time the tackle wrong. They're going to get in the air and have a problem. And so the fact that Eben is basically, to me, the captain of the chase team, and then you have Kirtley or Cheslin or whatever, profiting off those balls, it's such a hidden attack weapon, and it takes so much effort to get that 120 kgs moving down the pitch 5, 6, 7 times on a chase, and then still have to do your core work.
Yeah, and the other thing, Harry, is I think if you take away the number and you look at his GPS stats, there's certain people that'll say this is a back.
Yeah,
If they don't know
exactly.
it's him, the amount of running that he does, high speed running and repeated efforts that he puts in, he's an absolute athlete. And sometimes it's to the detriment of the system, but he's got this bigger picture in mind. So Smith drops back into the pocket. Eben is on the probably the wider part of the blind side. These guys probably usually doesn't try to
Charge
block
down.
drop goals.
Yeah.
The charge down normally comes from there and from the outside if someone picks it up early or if they've really got no other option. But Eben comes from the inside, blind side, and it just shows you the work rate and the work ethic within this player. And like I said, he opened up the space on this one because he was really, he made a read and he thought this guy was going for a drop goal. What got him was the fact that he had to go on the outside of Genge. If he could have gone on the inside of Genge there, he takes away the inside step of Marcus Smith, and Smith probably tries to wedge on the outside and gets the ball out wide and can't get back there. But because he goes on the outside of Genge, he opens up that space. And they finished this well, but still, the fact that he got into that position, and from that position to charge, is very unlikely for a lot of players. But he just never rests. He chases lost causes. He makes nothing into something with his work rate. Normal defense, his awareness of the ball. So that's actually a knock on. He knew that ball was out because that ball got dropped. And immediately that awareness, but not just awareness. You get a lot of guys that's aware of it, Harry, but they don't react. Eben reacts, gets out the line. Pity doesn't make that tackle, but still they don't get the ball wide and they play it to the inside. His awareness of where the ball is amazing. And I mean, we've seen this clip when we did the sevens with Peter Steff, but Eben sits before games. He has a look at the nines. He takes time to look at their technique. He looks at the amount of time they take before they kick. And then it comes down to he sets, there's the load, and then that timing, it's so close to offside. As he lifts the ball, that jumps there, and he just overwhelms him. There's nowhere that ball can go. Misses that one, another charge, and we all know what happened after that. It's one of probably the all-time classics, if I can say that.
That's such a brilliant iteration, André, of how you've put that into segments. And where I just realized what it reminds me of. You see the Olympics and you see the high jump event. The top high jumpers will stand before they high jump and they literally rehearse in their mind, imaginarily, each step on the way to the bar before they spring. And I think Eben has it down to that. He like if he sees a Jack from Portfleet or Danny Kerr or whoever it is, he knows their tendencies and then he can dance with them. And what I also like about him is he's not a ceremonial charge down attempt guy. He goes for it every single time as if it's going to happen. And and I know you're going to fail 20 times in a game, but look at the one that does work.
That's a great point. And it's part of his DNA now. It's part of his game. I think he reviews his charge downs. He'll go and have a look. Oh, my jump was slow. My load was terrible. Because you get this front foot load where you want to go, your first step needs to be over your front foot. You don't want to step back and then go forward. That takes time. It gives the 9 time. And he looks at the little cues from the 9, showing him, I'm going to dummy and then go, because that's probably the only comeback to those charges. They need to make you believe that they're going to kick it and then get you offside and then go. And he got caught last night a couple of times against Munster. But once he gets it right, he puts you under a lot of pressure. And then just one to end off with against Wales, high ball. Wiese makes an unbelievable tackle front on, or Elrich makes a tackle front on. And then again, not a one-trick pony. I like this. Look at that early release to speed. Early release, gets the ball, says, you go and score it. But I want you to have a look at Eben's strides here, how he sprints to stay up with Arendse. Those are big arms, and that's well-deserved. That is so well-deserved because of that unselfish, selfless, what do you call it, contribution in the beginning, where he gave the ball early, where a lot of guys would have taken that space and given the advantage to the defense to try and chase them.
It's fun to run with the ball. People get excited. And that shows his ethos, that he's a team man. He was captain during the darkest days, you know, taking those 57 defeats against the All Blacks. He never hung his head. What I loved about Eben, and will love him to the day I die about it, is that you see him in so many lost causes, tracking back, trying to make the final tackle in those years when we were losing big. Never give up, never give in. What he's added though is precision. So talk about his tells at a charge down. He doesn't have any because he just gets ready and does the same thing. So you're never going to know if he's going to back off or not. At line out, same thing. He gets in the same crouch, whether it's his call or not. He gives maximum effort. Again, the quarterfinal against France, one of the greatest victories, you know, in our time, really. He saved the game probably when he runs out of the defensive line, gets in the correct body shape to not look like he was knocking on intentionally, but to say he was knocking back. That took so much control, body, dynamism. He's famous inside Sharks and Box camp for his routines. He only eats pasta before the games. No matter what you offered him, could be the greatest meal in the world. He's going to stick with it. Chicken, pasta. He's dedicated, he's devoted, and he's got something driving him inside him that said, I don't want to be known just as a guy, the ace-stutter who's always causing a fight. I want to become the best lock who ever played for the country that has the best locks. So this is going to be reflected in our grades for him, which we have him at a perfect for set piece. And by that I mean, has he ever made a mistake anywhere in a scrum or line out or restart? Of course, but compared to the world at large, he's your guy if you wanted to form a set piece team around a lock. And we just talked about all his add-ons and bonuses, but I'm just saying, if he packs down to a scrum, he's going to give you every kilojoule he's got. If he's going to be in a line-out, he's going to try to contest, and he's a wonderful line-out thief because he can jump without a lift. Then we go across to his carrying stats, 28 out of 30. Couple of holes there sometimes because he'll go up. Sometimes he'll go a bit upright into contact, and it's because he has belief in his power. So that's sometimes he'll get stripped or carried. On the ruck, though, I've never seen a guy like you said. You pulled out that erasure he did from long distance. He gets so low. He's so legal about his ruck cleans, and then finally power. You know, obviously he's been tested. And he can stand easily and jump the crossbar and palm it. He can move people. He's unbelievable athlete. So that comes out to 98, which is no surprise because when he's healthy and he's ready to go, there's really not very many rugby players, God's green earth, that are better than Eben Etzebeth.
Harry, and it's funny you should mention the lineouts, and I was watching him last night against Munster, and the way that he went into the lineouts, if you look at Eben Etzebeth, you never know if he's getting the ball or not. He's always in a loaded position. He's always ready. His hands are up. We talk about where's Mike Tyson when we defend on this side, and he's always in that, you don't know. And I'd love to see the players that play around him in his position, even the number 3 and 4 and 5 in the squad with the Sharks at the moment. They've got to be under so much pressure because normally it's the guys not wearing the jersey that keep the guy in the jersey, on his toes. But I think in that position there, He's the guy keeping them on their toes.
Yeah.
And we should actually track those players because they're becoming fantastic rugby players because of the example that Eben Etzebeth is setting. They would never have thought of charging the 9 as much as they can and see they can do that now. They would never have thought of going out of the line and catching a 10 as much as they see that now. They wouldn't see guys as a 4-lock jumping in the air and contesting aerial kicks the way that Eben Etzebeth does. He's opened up a whole new world, and we get a 3, 4, 5. Maybe they don't play at the Sharks. Maybe they move on and they get to other franchises. But you're going to have fantastic locks because for me, Eben Etzebeth is the following. His intentionality over impact. His impact's huge, but he is very intentional with the stuff that he does on the field.
Yeah, that's a wonderful synopsis of him. He's also beloved. By that, I mean, there's people in your teams that are good, they're great, but they're sort of marginal characters. Eben's got great character. He's been through a lot of things. He was not perfect. His journey took him through different places and times, and like all of us probably, but maybe, when you have that much temptation and fame and natural, God-given talent and good looks and all this, it could have gone the wrong way. But Eben is a straight character he's true north. It's difficult to take a freak like Eben Etzebeth and then move on. But RG Snyman, or our Irish friends would call him RG Snyman, is going to push him for some physical attributes. I mean, obviously, he's one of the few guys that Eben looks up to. He's also got hands the size of hams, and he's got a preternatural ability to offload in any contact. You could send 5 guys to him. He's probably still going to get his hands free. So take us through Snyman's unique attributes as he plays lock.
What you just said there was, he brings something different to the game. It does come with a bit of risk, and we'll assess when it goes well and when it doesn't go well, and I'll show you when it goes well, why it goes well, and then when it doesn't. But RG has found something. He's found a niche within the game for himself, but he's also not let the niche take over. He also does the dirty work, as you'll see in the clips. Again, I've put in a couple of lineout deliveries. There's one where it's just a superb right hand straight down to Gibson Park delivery, which you want to see. He's stealing a ball, but it's not something that Eben doesn't do or the other candidates that it doesn't do. I like the fact that we put in some of that just to show that that's still important for the position that they play. So right on cue, this is the one I'm talking about, Harry. Look at that great little right hand straight down into his run, that delivery. Now, most of them deliver with 2 hands. The way that he gets his hand behind the ball, shoots it down. Now what this means is the fact that the time it takes from his hand to Gibson Park means that any outside shooter from the back of the lineout has got no chance, because Gibson Park has got a lot of time to get rid of the ball. And I know in this case it probably doesn't matter, but it's a great visual for locks, young locks, to practice that skill. Get your hand behind the ball, and it's got to be a sympathetic pass, but also it's got to have some pace on it to ensure that the 9 does have time to play from there.
That's such a good clip, though, because the number of times where you win a line out and you almost wish you didn't because it's such horrible service can cancel out all that field position. Second, I never really noticed it, but on this clip, because it's pitch side, you can see how far back the opposing backline is still when Jamison Gibson Park gets the ball. Boom, they're still way back there. So you've just bought your backline so much space and time. The third thing I remember is Antoine Dupont was so frustrated with his locks on the service to him that he literally at practice, he was the lifted lock, and then he had one of the locks play scrum off, and he said, "How do you like it now?" And he just gave them, shit balls to catch. And it's the worst. You're the smallest guy in the field, and you're about to get battered because the ball's bouncing around or they froze you. Archia he's literally using that almost like a goalkeeper in soccer. He's his service to his 9 is almost provoking an attack play in and of itself.
It's such a good point. And what I talk about is a little rainbow ball. Sometimes they catch it 2 hands and they kind of lob it. It's like another line out ball to the 9, and that's when you get into trouble. And that's the reason I put this one in, because I think it's a great skill. He doesn't do it to the other side, probably right hand dominant. He doesn't do it to the other side, but still, I think it's a great visual to show of Archie. And then catching a ball behind his head. He's got all the skills, just like he should have. Ball goes past. And again, great delivery. Probably not the best decision there. He should pass that from the beginning to take away the pressure. And also got the ability to steal the ball. And again, offload from there. He'll try and get rid of anything that's in his hands if he's got an opponent on him.
But very few people can make that, because there's a certain dimension of hand issue here.
Yes, and as we go along, this is going to be important, and we'll refer back to this. Have a look at his hand position. It's under the ball, which means that after he's made the offload, the ball is going up. And that's the safe one. When Archie gets in trouble, it's when his hand is on top or kind of side on, and the ball's not going up. And then you need people to react and to be they need to be ready for it. And you'll see when it happens and when it doesn't happen. But he'll get rid of anything, and that's still a great carry by Etzebeth.
It also attracts a lot of attention. To your point about going into doubles, you kind of create situations where teams think they have to triple team him. So then you're giving your friends some space.
That's right. And as you see in this one, Harry, great position. He gets into a really good position there. What I'd love to see is I just want to see him stay down there and not get out of posture, because that's when he shows too much of the ball after having kind of shielded it from the opponents, and then he gets ripped from there. Again, on this one, have a look at the motion. He gets into motion before he gets the ball. Ball available. So a very interesting one that I've picked up on these, especially tall ball carriers who understand how you can use the forward-leaning shoulder of a defender to keep yourself upright. So that foot that I've just circled there, you'll see when he gets hit, normally that hit puts any player onto the ground. But what Archie does is he ensures that he gets that foot down again. Because if you can get that foot down again, with you leaning onto this, let's call it a pillar or something that's keeping you upright, then you can keep going. And then, great body position. And he stays down this time, and the ball's available. Do you see what I mean
that's
on
dynamism,
staying up?
Yeah, and balance. And it's so there's probably some of that's so quick that has to be instinctual. But there's another thing, is you were 100% right. We talked to Elder Hello, and we kind of talked about the cannon arm and the reload and being in positions in contact. And he confirmed what you said, that that's a Bach work on, and that they concentrate on that of, getting that one more drive. He's got a latcher on him anyway, so it's safe to go for one more.
So easy just to go to ground after that good hit. But he gets that foot down again, and that's the key. Now the next one's there, and he can keep going. But the difference with this carry is he stays down, Harry. He protects the ball. Okay, Harry. Now this is one of my favorite categories or events, whatever you want to call it, is showing the defense something and then playing something else. Now, as we go along, the next candidate also does this, and I'll show you the difference. Now, Ireland is probably one of the best teams in the world going out the back from a pod. And the reason being is that that head runner of the pod is in motion. It's going into the lion's mouth and then making the pass from there. And he's no different from Archie. And obviously he's been in that camp for a while now. But you'll see how he goes forward and he doesn't stop to make the pass. He keeps going on.
Yes, yes. This is huge how it looks the same if I'm defending this. I don't know what I'm looking at. It looks like, oh, he's going to run through me. But he continues his momentum while he's throwing it back.
And the thing is, he takes that space. Have a look at how that's not even his man. Archie is not his man. He's committed on Archie, and then what that does is the next defender is then held up, and you're left with a 4-on-2 with a sweeper continuing on the inside. So this guy now has a decision to make because his inside has just sat on Archie because he stayed dynamic. He stayed in motion and making this pass. And the reason I show this is because all teams are doing this, and it gets done at a high percentage. You need to be effective on it. And then I think this ball obviously should have gone. You've turned the wing around. You got some pace on the outside. Use your 3-on-2 from that 4-on-2.
Yo, I think Archie is one of the best in the world at that particular skill of leading a forward pod as a lock and doing out the back where you don't know what's going to happen until the final instant. James Ryan actually is pretty good at that as well. Ty Byrne, I guess maybe it's the Irish thing. They're training always to go at speed and go out the back.
So, good point. Great point again, because you'll see again, and I think you mentioned it earlier, he invokes double hits. Everybody's looking at him. So you can't just leave a single hit on him. So what that does is when he gets in motion, guys plant. They know this is something that we need to stop. And when that happens is your defense gets sluggish and the catch up slow. So again, in motion, look at how close he does this. 3 defenders get stood up, ball out the back. And now look at the effect of this. Space. This defender is late. You can see he's stretching to tackle one of the best centers in the world, the best rugby players in the world. Next guy, stretching. Next guy, stretching. Just because the fundamental principles of that play has been followed, and Archie has stayed in motion, and look how close he passes that to the line. Now it's difficult to move off that, Harry, and still defend the outsides.
That's super cool, actually, the way that by doing that one thing, then a cascading set of mismatches accrue to your team. Boom, 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 boom.
And the space. And then if you react on the outside, you just have to make the one good decision on the line, and that's your line break. Ball in the back. Keeping it alive, and then this is a great example. This is Irish and Leinster rugby at their best. And again, Archie being in motion, but have a look at Prendergast. When he gets it, he goes into that little seam, closes that space, gets the defender to bite in, and that causes the line break. But I have to mention Doris here. So if you're running a decoy line and your hands are up, you're looking at the ball, the defender's always going to be caught in that position.
Yeah.
And if you don't do it, he moves off and he tackles Prendergast. Gets into that space, gets the defender into that, and then makes that pass. I love this play, and this is why they're so good with their structure, because of the detail. Now he goes into that space, gets the defender to bite. And again, it starts with Archie staying in motion and making that pass. Now let's get to his offloading, because that's obviously what he's good at. Now you'll see this hand is probably more on top than on the side, but because Franco's expecting it, that ball can go, it kind of goes down. It doesn't go up. And that's the dangerous one. If he's not expecting that, that's a difficult one to get. Next one, Leinster jersey. Play of 10. Move on the outside. Keeps it alive. More of a gut pass. But look at what that does to the defense. How many extra players needs? And again, after the offload, he was tackled. He's back there into the attacking breakdown.
And I hear you about being ready and not being ready, but I would say if you're going to have André doing 20 offloads in a season, I think he's leading the league. I would say if you're playing with him, be ready. It's coming.
Exactly. And when he gets it wrong is when he doesn't get his hand under and his hand's on top or to the side. It's more of a pass than a pop. And if you're not ready, that's when the ball hits the ground. This one is kind of more of a bullying one, just gets on top, looking at who's available, little basketball pass, and they keep it alive. That's just his intention. He knows he doesn't want to die with this ball. And also his size 35 hands make a big difference.
Yeah, it's also, so we put him at 4 in this discussion. He obviously plays 5, and it's complicated because when he comes off the bench for the box, sometimes 2 locks are coming on, so it's a shuffle. Our projection here is because of his size, by adding 7 or 8 kgs over the last 2, 3 years, projecting forward, succession planning, I think he ends up being an enforcer 4 lock with these additional skills. When you look at guys like Nortia and Sos and those guys, we can talk about next week. I feel like he's learning how big he is. Not just tall. I think he's learning his power now and that he can bully people.
I agree with you, Harry. And I think the other thing is I don't see him as a lineout caller. I see him as someone who wants to run around the field and hit people and give offloads and, look after his mates. And lineout calling is probably not on his priority list. His role at the Leinster team is a bit different, and I think that's why he wears the 5 jersey. But it's a great point you make. Again, off the ruck, moving in motion. Now you'll see his hands under the ball. Ball goes up, no problem. And who's there after he's been tackled? It's André. Now, I think this is part of the box battle rate. You've just been tackled, taken out. Who's going to be at that next one? If you don't go, we're going to have to include another body into that breakdown, and our shape breaks down. So you have to make it. Great carry, and I keep repeating myself, but the way he gets into motion, Harry, that's 131 kgs. In motion, getting the ball before the defenders get to him. Hands under the ball. After that, the ball goes up. That's the safe one.
Nice. Cool.
And also gets back into that attacking breakdown. Now, you'll see these clips. It's not just a once off. How many clips have you just seen where he makes the offload, gets tackled, obviously with an offload, gets tackled. Next breakdown, he gets there. So it's not a once off. That's the way he plays. Here we got a double offload, and this is one where Doris shows. So his hand's more on top on this one, and this is the dangerous one. But you'll see Doris next to him. He's got eyes on the ball. He knows what André is going to do. Catches a difficult one within contact, keeps the ball alive. André is not at that breakdown. Where is he? Next one. Basketball up there. It's embarrassing sometimes.
Double offload, yeah.
So I wanted to include a clip to show the effect of what an offload does, because sometimes we think the offload is just preventing the next ruck from happening, but it's not just that. And this is a very cool clip to show how it actually impacts your blind side. So Ergia moving onto the ball again, he's got a double it. If they're effective with this, you probably have the chop guy from the chop and top. You have him get up, recycle to wherever they need him. You get the top guy riding the tackle, putting him down and contesting the ruck. That doesn't happen with Ergia. Gets his hand under the ball again, up. Now you've got a tackler from the blind side defense that has to make the tackle. And now you've got 4 defenders in this situation, part of this tackle. And what this does is, because it's over the advantage line with the offload, you've got 1 defender that's not in position yet, and they use that to their advantage to finish a fantastic try. We'll show it in real time. Just how effective these offloads are and how they can use them. One more offload. So this is what we're talking about. This is where it becomes dangerous. You'll see, if you're playing with Ergie, you should be going into that space even before he gets to the position. So his way of offloading is moving onto the outside shoulder, getting his hands on top of the tackle, and then moving the ball from there. So André doesn't react to this. He's anticipating the ruck. Hand more on top and to the side than underneath, and ball hits grass, but at least we keep the ball. But can you see the difference there? André not reacting, Ergie getting dominated in the contact and not getting his hand under, and how that makes a difference, Harry?
Yeah, it's also the 2 different styles of team. So in Ireland, for Leinster, sorry, playing for Leinster, they don't really dominate the gain line. So they need the offloads and the decoys and the systems and the directions and the lines to get over. For the box, you're going to win the gain line most of the time. So the players are not really geared up for the offload. So I think you're looking there at André saying, why would you? What's the need? Gratefully, he picked it up. But, I think Archia has to do that at Leinster to create the line breaks.
Good point. I would have loved to play with him. There's something going to open up.
Yeah, exactly. Chaos. He creates chaos. He's a disruptor.
Yeah. So we look at his offloading again, and just when he gets into trouble, you'll see it's when they get in underneath him. If you start working on him, the outside tackler, if you can get him out of his posture, really work up onto him and keep his hands on top of the ball, that's when it becomes a really difficult. And Marx was ready for that, but he couldn't get rid of that. And if you go before that, I think that's a tough double hit to get into. So the decision making is going to become more important as it goes along, because people are going to be aware of his offload threat, and they're going to have to make a plan. We have
100%. Yeah, they planning him now. That's the thing. Yeah. You
have to get an offload prevention plan when you're playing to him. So the next guy, which is probably this guy, you got to say, you got to turn on ball. You've got to go into that space. Doesn't matter what happens, because he's going to throw the offload. But when it gets to the contact, if you can get in under him, keep his hand on top of the ball, that offload becomes more difficult. And then pick and go, hand on, see how it goes straight to ground. That's the dangerous one. This is the dangerous one. This is where you lose control, when you get hit dominantly with that ball position in your hand. And just one last one, also good decision making when he does make offloads. So you'll see there was on Dialende, there was a turn on ball, a guy preventing the offload. Ergi's got that presence of mind. He's got the visual on who he wants to pass to. He's not available, goes to ground, and then offloads off the ground. And that just shows you that offloading is now a real part of his game.
Fantastic clips there. He's the offload king, and more than that, he's if we had to have a special category for Eben on the kick chase, which is an addition that most locks don't have, André is the offloader, and that he literally is his own industry of line break manufacture just from doing offloads. But it's about the synergy between him and his teammates. We ranked André very high in set piece, not quite as high as Eben and some of the other locks that actually are more fixated on that. 38 out of 40. Carry, gain line, 29 out of 30. Almost perfect, with this one taken off for the things you isolated and identified. At ruck skills, underrated ruck cleaner. He gets very low because he's got agility and flexibility in his long body. And then his power also has taken a couple of notches up, so 9 out of 10, for a whopping score of 95. He's been used as the solution lock right now because you can stick him in at 4 or 5, doesn't matter. He has a lot of stamina, so you can play as long as you want. But looking ahead and the inevitability of Father Time versus Eben, you do wonder about it, and maybe he's the heir apparent. So now let's go into a lock that is somewhat more contentious, but we talk about this guy, Salmaan Moerat, because he has been picked a lot. So we deal with it. We're not talking about who we would pick or whatever. It's just the fact that Salmaan Moerat is someone that is a captain of the Stormers and has been given significant caps in significant games. And the Springbok coaches do speak very highly of him.
Harry, again, just before we get into him, I think just to clarify, the tackle and the attacking breakdown, these guys are world class at that. And you know, I could keep you busy here for probably a day with all their clips when it comes to tackling, attacking breakdown, etc. You know, we want to find something that's different, which we showed in Eben and we showed with André. And the thing with Moerat that I want to get across is, I think there's been a bit of a change, a very positive change with his physicality.
I agree.
And it's not just me that it's not just me that think in that way. I've heard a lot of people say that his physicality has changed, and I'd love to see that in a Springbok jersey. You know, I know he's been captain a couple of times, but I think there is something there, and he has shown that. And we'll get to the clips, and you'll see the kind of transformation that happens in the latter part of the Urk, as you call it, and in some of those games. So I like the fact that he's realized that he's got more, and he's going to use it coming up because he has been using it. Right. So we'll start with his carrying. Now, the one thing I would say of Moerat is a very skillful player. So if you're coming up against a line speed system, he'll be able to give you options or play his options inside and outside. So just before this carry, you can see ball in 2 hands for as long as possible. But what I'd like to see more is him going into that space and kind of, Eben did this in a very small setting earlier, but kind of focusing, getting onto that shoulder instead of running onto that body straight on. Because it changes that tackle and it changes the breakdown when you do get it, especially you've got both your ruckers on your outside shoulder. You would be better off working yourself into that space where both your ruckers are. So that's one of the things. He'll have the ball in 2 hands. He can play inside and outside, but I want to see more space carrying instead of running into straight shoulders like that. Against Benetton, ball probably not in the right side of his body. I think on that step there, and he gets upended onto that. Still manages to keep the ball. Now, this is the carry that I'd love to see more of him, into that wide edge. And you'll see how destructive he is on this. He's a big body. He's 116 Ks, 200, 2 meters tall. It's a difficult body to tackle. And then, Harry, this is the tackle, the carry I'm talking about, where I can see there's a bit of an aggressive difference. Into motion, the others you didn't see motion, and then that's aggressive. That's something that I haven't seen from him there. Now, if we can see more of that, I think Moerat has got a couple of caps. He's only got 10 caps now, but he can probably multiply that by a couple if he keeps showing this. And I haven't seen this in a Bok jersey. It's kind of like he plays it safe when he's in a Bok jersey. I just want to carry to keep the ball. I just want to hit the attacking breakdown so we keep the ball. But this is showing some intent. This is showing.
I 100% agree that he's come up as being always the biggest guy, in school, in the competition, and each level requires more of you. And I think for him to stick at international level and get to 20, 25, 30 caps, this exact little moment right here is what is needed. Obviously, the coaches believe in him to pick him 10 times. And he's the first of his community to make it to the Bokland. He's got a lot of things riding on him. He has a lot of people looking up to him. He's a fantastic guy, but maybe just find that little bit of extra beast mode.
Harry, the other thing that I've seen with interviews from him, he doesn't speak because there are cameras. He speaks to his mates. He speaks to his team. I like that. I really like that. He's a team man. And then we get to the skills part. In motion, gets rid of the ball. Kwagga gets hit really hard and still hits that breakdown. Now, a lot of players would have just carried that. He puts Kwagga into that space there. And you'll see a lot of those types of clips from him. Here's another one. In the contact, weak shoulder, and still hits the breakdown. Same as André. He gets partially hit down, and he still gets into that breakdown, which is a lot of players will just stay down. They won't hit that breakdown. They've done their job. Not him. Another one, I think this is the inside ball. Understands where the space is and ensures that the ball goes there. He's very skillful, and like I said, if you get onto those, especially this type of clip where you get guys shooting on the ball carrier, and you get this little arrow where you get the defender on the outside, defender on the inside, hanging back a bit, he's your man. He can put people into space in that situation. And then again, just on the contact line, gets rid of it, and they put him into space on the outside.
Right time. It's interesting because his hands are really good, which we know from lineout. But sometimes guys have good lineout hands don't have good general play? But he seems to be someone who can catch pass really quickly.
Yes, and just to show how good André does that out the back ball from the pods, we got Moerat in front. Obviously, the ball has been called to go out the back. Now have a look at his movement. Doesn't stay in contact or doesn't stay in motion. 3 defenders just moving off. No use passing that, and they kick it into the space there. And that's the difference, Harry. That's the difference in staying square first. I didn't mention that with André. He also stays square, isolating these defenders on the outside and then making the pass. But I think, to be fair, we've got nothing running onto that ball on the outside, which also makes it. He's getting to the line way too early with regards to his outside attackers. He has to make that pass now, and that's just easy to defend. Whereas if you remember the André clips, how that inside pod stayed on him and then had to move out and open up that space on there.
Andre, that seems coachable, no? Like you could get that across.
It does.
Someone could pick that up, because I think it's first of all, it's unnatural to keep running straight when you know you're going to do something else, but that's just discipline. You can make your mind do that.
It is, Harry. The big thing here is communication. If this call comes from your active pivot at the back, it means that these boys know what's coming. Now all he needs to do is he needs to run a really hard line and ensure that we keep these guys committed. And then Moerat can go as close as possible and pull the ball back. But it feels like the setup's not great, because these guys are probably, I would say, 2 meters behind him. If he jumps, if he gets off the line, they're always going to be slower because it's reactive. So then that becomes 3 meters. For them to get to the line at the same time as him, he's got to wait for them. And with that waiting, your inside becomes stronger and they just push off. Exactly what you see in that clip. And the defense kind of dominates that. So 100%. Starts with your setup, but also when the communication comes, you need to be able to run those lines and give him the certainty that I'm going to be at the line with you. You keep going. And then on the D, I think that's probably where he's made his biggest improvement. That's a forward lean tackle. That's coming off the line, leaning forward, getting off the line. This is the part where I've seen the biggest improvement in his game. Again, we fold, keeps working on the inside. Have a look at how he pulls him back. It looks like a very uncomfortable tackle, but he ensures that this guy's not going forward any further. Great kick chase. Got them locked inside their 22. Don't want to give them any easy exits. Gets off the line. Forward lean. Great tackle. Inside ball. How low he gets. That's a difficult tackle for a tall player, to get that low and still be effective. Now, I think Brock has done a big load of the work there, but he's definitely improved his tackling when it comes to that. He's a lot more physical, and in that one, you can see the intent. Just as he gets into screen here, have a look at his intent flying into that, which I don't think we've seen from him, Mary. That's, if he gets into a Bok jersey, I'd love to see that from him. I want to see this guy do well.
Yeah, he gets into a full stretch there. I don't see them do that much, or haven't at Bok level. I don't even think I've seen him at Stormer level of really using his whole body, because I don't know if he's using his entire force too much.
So I think there's been a big improvement. I don't know if it's after his injury, where he decided listen, I've had enough, or he's realized this is what he can do. But I think there's been a big improvement, especially with his physicality.
I agree. There's never been anything wrong with his set piece work. And the first thing coaches will talk about is his set piece. So we have him at a 39 out of 40 for set piece, because he's literally excellent. He could teach it. He could coach it right now. It's really been in the carry and the tackle on the gain line, where you want your lock to be your biggest, scariest monster. 25 out of 30, and all the shortcomings and work-ons that you just actually showed them in a very nice synopsis there. And I would say that it's also that he's been gymming more. I think sometimes when you get an injury, you're forced to go to the gym and be more serious about your goals. He's just stronger. He's stronger, and he's growing into his body. And I think there's going to be some fruits there that we see that actually translates into his ruck work, which we've done 16 out of 20. And there it's exactly the same thing, is coming into the ruck zone and to that magic sort of 3-second golden period of time. He hasn't hit people hard enough. they didn't stay hit. And so that's forced him to do some rolls, which famously he got carded for. Even if I think that was a soft call, the fact that he had to do a roll is the point. And then finally, his power, that's the deficit. So if we actually run it all out, the numbers 87, nothing wrong with that. 87 out of 100 is obviously why the Bok coaches are attracted to him. He's got to get to more of a 90, 91 if he's going to stick. There's a lot of Springboks out there, I mean, a lot, but there's a lot of Springboks recently that have gotten to 5, 10, 12, 14 caps. But somewhere in that region, they either stick or someone else takes their place. So, yeah, here's hoping that Moerat does that. And I guess in some ways it's good news. It's easy, it's hard work, but it's easy to play a bigger, more powerful role. That's what he's going to do.
Look, if I had him and Eben in the same team, I would pair them up in rooms, in eating, in cold plunges. I would just get Moerat. He's 27 years old. He's got 6 years on Eben, and I would just get him to absorb everything. Keep, you still put the Moerat flavor out there, but just steal a little from these excellent players. Put that as part of your arsenal for going forward, and just become that player. And he's got the leadership ability, so he's obviously well liked in the team. But I would get him to just stalk Eben Etzebeth as much as possible and keep his own flavor, because there's a lot of stuff there that I think needs to be unpacked. And he's gonna, like I said, those 10 caps will become 60, 70.
So we've been doing in this series, we introduce obviously the incumbent. We talk about the most frequent understudy. We talk about the third line, third stringer, and then we've been going ahead and talking about a dark horse, a bolter, if you will. And this time it's going to be our friend, the scariest bull of all, Cobus Wiese. No joke, he's the nicest guy in the world, but he just looks like trouble. And we're attracted to him in some ways on this particular one because of his work rate, because of his gain line, if we put this side by side, he's a sort of 37 set piece guy. He's about a 28 in the gain line, tackle zone, collision zone, 18 out of 20 in the ruck, because he really is a ruck monster. And then his power, 9 out of 10. He's got that sort of natural power. I guess it runs in the family. Jasper Wiese and Cobus Wiese, imagine that household and getting that breakfast together. So he translates actually to a 92, which, is right now, if you just had to go and there was no upside, no ceiling issues, you'd say this guy is right there, third string, ready to go. Probably on Moerat, people are looking at a higher ceiling if they could combine the technique and the talent and the eye and the vision with what we call Cobus Wiese's power. So maybe if you combine the two, all that translates into this table, which is the overall comprehensive look. We have Eben with a 40, 28, 20, 10 from set piece to collision zone to ruck to power for a 98. André Snyman, 38, 29, 19, 9 for 95. Moerat, 39 in the set piece, and then 25, 16, and 7 for a total of 87. And then Cobus Wiese, the scary bull, 37, 28, 18, and 9 for a total of 92. And André, I don't know about you, but I know we're excited about going to the next version of Lock soon, probably this week, which has just minor nuances. But just to be clear, everyone, these are very interchangeable players, and you could put these guys in different spots. But we're going to look at Lock 5, which has a little more set piece into it because of the lineouts. Once again, fantastic to see the clips. And hopefully we made this incredible servant of Bok Rugby proud, Eben Etzebeth. It's hard to talk about Eben Etzebeth and not go too superlative.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, with these clips, well, probably all these guys' clips, we could have been keeping them busy. Just on Cobus Wiese, I think when I realized his importance was when he was injured.
Yeah.
And I saw what they did to the Bulls, and the way that he conducts himself, the way that his physicality means a lot to that team, and he's a really good player. But it kind of backs up what we said about Moerat, and I think if he can bridge that gap with the physicality, the consistent physicality, and get that intentionality over impact, where you're not playing it safe, but you play for the bigger picture. You know what you're trying to achieve. I think he can be something. But I like that dark horse. I think it's a good one.
Jake was talking about being down 21-8 to Edinburgh, almost a bad dream, a recurrence of a bad nightmare. And I got to say, I know that the man of the match is almost never a guy like Kobus, but he was definitely the man of the resurrection, because he basically brought the Bulls back with his hard gain line carries, his attention to detail. And I think he also thinks this way. This is my interpretation after having a beer or two with him, is he just likes to look at a guy on the other team and say, I'm going to beat you. And then he takes another guy and go, I'll beat you too. And I think that kind of level of that kind of mentality is probably what we want from Salmaan Moerat, is beat your opponent.
For sure. And he makes a big difference. And I hope he gets a Springbok jersey soon.
All right, so that wraps up our number 4 lock. And next we'll go on to his buddy, the 5 lock, very soon.
Our ultimate 2025 Springbok team every Sunday with André Pretorius.